originally was one of those ones like the sitter or something.
Listen, could I say something before we get started? Because it'll be a new week, but I just wanted you guys in the States to let you know or express how sad I am about all the turmoil and destruction that's happening in Minneapolis, and it really hit home when I saw the clips from Seattle, which is a city that I'm quite familiar with and have friends there, and it is so sad what's happening down there, and it just so resonates with this whole happy body journey that we are on as well, and um, so I don't know. I'm really frustrated that I don't have an answer, and I know that we're not be above having those problems in Canada too, but certainly not quite so I don't know, what do you say, physical or whatever. And I know that there's been a lot of demonstrations in up here, especially, well, Vancouver was a big one yesterday, just in support of all of the folks in the U.S. And it just I just needed to say that, especially with this group, because I don't know, I feel very close to all of you guys, and I hope you're not affected by it too closely. Anyway, not in the cities and so forth.
I'm
Anyway.
definitely affected. There are stores 2 blocks from my house boarding up and getting ready for people to come down the major retail area and start looting. And so it's also a very flammable area. It's a combination of urban and retail, and a fun place to walk around it formerly, and also wooded area. And so we're all concerned that fires will get here. So I've got hoses out, and I'm, ready to protect the place. I had to park my car way far away.
Where are you, Amy?
I'm at the corner of Laurel Canyon and Ventura Boulevard in a town called Studio City in the Valley. And it's, it's a wealthier area. And I know there was a protest planned for going down Ventura Boulevard to attack, and to protest. Now the protest was canceled, so hopefully people won't continue to gather, but I don't know what's being organized in terms of looters, and I don't know how they're separate from, how they're getting the information from the peaceful protesters. It's hard to know how they're organizing.
Wow. Thanks, Amy. That's too close to home for sure.
Do you have a lockdown, Amy? A certain time that people have to be inside?
I was just watching the news, and the curfew for today is going to start at 1 p.m. in business districts.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Severe. George releases independent observing death caused by asphyxiation. It just was on the news. George Floyd. Oh, God. Yeah, it's scary. That's what it is.
Well, I'm trying really hard to, be a master in this. And I definitely have fear and anxiety about protecting my property. I also support freedom of speech, but I'm trying not to fuel the flames and getting into gossip with people or engaging with anyone online. And I'm really grateful the protesters saw that they should cancel the protest going down Ventura for the safety of the businesses, for the safety of all involved, and that things are just out of hand, and that it's become impossible to protest peacefully without it erupting into violence and destruction.
Yeah.
A lot of the protesters up in Seattle were also not even from Seattle. They're sort of like professional protesters that just come in to make trouble because that's their political agenda.
Yeah, for sure. Same up here.
Well, and there's, 98% of the destruction and what do they call it? Local terrorism, not international terrorism, is done by white supremacy groups. They're not done by Black groups that are gathering. Antifa accounts for 2% of all problems, and white supremacists account for 98%. So there's opportunists here infiltrating.
Hi guys,
Hi.
Hi, Jersey.
how's
Oh,
everyone?
you're here. Hi, Jersey.
A new week, right?
New week.
Yeah, what a week.
So how do we, the question is, because I listened a little bit what you were saying, how we transfer the person who is violent to not violent, what needs to be done? How a racist becomes not racist?
Well, up here it's illegal what I'm thinking.
Well, you know, if we pass the law, does it change anything?
No.
No, so that's not an answer. How a racist becomes not racist?
I think they have to get to know people that they vilify. Once they understand they're as human as they are, they no longer depersonalize them.
Right, engagement, right? But usually they are not engaged with people. It's impossible, like, to be around them unless you are in cities where you are in the same gym or restaurant or somewhere. But if you are really in certain villages, that would be impossible, right? To even encounter people that the people that you hate. So what else works really? How?
Can I just say on that point, also sometimes that doesn't work because people's mindset is so strong that if they meet someone from that group, that person becomes an exception, and they can know 20, 30 people that are exceptions and actually not know anybody from that group. So their mind has a way of kind of making excuses for whatever evidence is presented to them if they want to hold on to their racism or sexism or whatever it is. I think
Right.
it's
It's
getting
the
to
past,
why,
right?
how do they benefit
Something.
from their beliefs?
Yeah, something is too fast, right? So if it's something is too fast, it cannot really succeed, right? With whatever the progress is. Well, you know, let's think about maybe differently. How much time is needed to shift a racist to not racist? How much time do you think?
Jersey, I think we have to be very careful because most of us are racist. Racist does not mean you hate a group. It's a lot deeper than that. You know, it's especially us European descent. And I'm saying a lot of us in the group, I think that's the case. So it's a very deep examination of your conscience. And it's not just not hating a certain type of behavior, or it's so much deeper than this. I study Black literature, just not African American literature, but real African. And, you know, you see the same sort of problems in Europe, obviously. So I'm exposed to a lot of literature on it, theoretical and practical. So it's a big question for a group like this today.
I wouldn't use the word we because there are people that they are not. So
right.
If you say we, that is definitely not the right thing to do.
Okay, well, remove the we then. But
right. You can say I, right? Because if you believe we are all racist, like you said, and we are not.
Well, my point was racism is not just not hating a certain group, but it's not my point. It's something, you know, it's very much in the air if you read a little bit, just even going through Facebook.
Well, you know, let's say about taking advantage of the other, right? And that would be, you know, some kind of not even the racist, but you know, within the same race, we put people down, right? So that would not be racist because it's about the color, but some kind of dominance over the other, and use that as advantage because you are bigger, stronger, you are richer, so you can simply use that for your advantage and and take advantage of the other. So it's very common, right?
Right.
Hmm.
So it's common, but it's not really, not everybody is that way. So, you cannot fall into the stereotype because if you fall into the stereotype, you make a judgment that everyone is that way. But, stereotype is not about everybody. So there are people that they are not. There are people that don't take advantage of the other. And they don't have it inside. Have you met people like that?
Wait, you're talking to me?
Yes.
No, I think we're on different threads. So, yeah, I meet people like this, frequently. But I think
people that wouldn't take advantage of the weaker.
people that are very aware,
No, they wouldn't take advantage. It means like they simply would be in a position of the stronger and wiser, and that they would never take advantage of the weaker. Have you met people like that?
I do, of course. Of course,
Right.
it's all it takes is you being aware of the power that you have, white privilege or otherwise. And that is a constant challenge.
Of course, yeah, but these people prove that, we cannot say we,
Mhm.
because they are not racist.
Yeah, I don't want to argue. That I made my point.
Not
this
argue,
is
I follow the logic. I don't argue here. I just follow logic to understand certain things. And if you find people that simply do not take advantage of the others, that wouldn't be the case that they are in any way racist or any kind of people that are interested in, they love people simply, right? So they simply wouldn't do that, wouldn't do anything that would harm other people or take advantage over them, right? So we have to establish first fact whether these people exist.
Mhm.
And sorry, an ordinary hero, that woman,
Yes,
she's a person that did that.
yes, all right. So
Okay, so can I just tell you that watching Ashes to Diamonds and the next day watching An Ordinary Hero makes for crazy head for
Right.
me.
uh-huh.
A lot to take in.
Well, it's definitely movies are the media that can bring closer to the one that would never be exposed with another race that actually is portrayed in a positive way, right? Of course, these people will avoid all kind of movies like that, but possibility is that they like certain movies, and there can be a black person that is the main character, like Black Panther, right? And the movie that is very successful and viewed by a lot. It could be that there is a lot of this people that they are racist. They saw the movie, right? I don't think that they saw the movie Harriet, right, about the slave or 12 years slave, this movie probably would be avoided by them. So movie is a media that can deliver the message sometimes. But what is that interesting is, what do you think? How much time does it take really to turn over such a thing like a racist to be not racist?
There was a man who did a documentary on white supremacy, and he himself converted to for our purposes of discussion, a non-racist. I know it's semantically very provocative. So, and he said his mission was to rehabilitate white supremacists, and he thinks it takes a year.
A year.
That's what he is thinking.
All right. What was the movie?
It was a documentary produced.
I think I saw that movie.
Yeah.
A long time ago, right? Yeah.
Well, not that long ago, maybe 2 years ago, 1 year ago.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go to virtues, right? When you think about Stoics and virtues and living according to virtues, a person who is virtuous would be a racist. Could it happen?
Sorry, Jersey, what is the question? I can't.
The person is that the person like Socrates, would he be a racist? The people that living by the virtues in life, or known as virtuous people, would they be racist or would they take advantage of another? Because I think that taking advantage of the other is more powerful here and bigger than being a racist. So, because, we take advantage of the other in so many ways, right? And we see bullies and bosses that take advantage of the other. And the whole sexual harassment is one of those things. But not only that, it's just constantly that we are, in a way, in that situations that somebody tries to take advantage of us.
I think you made a good point yesterday, Jersey, when you said, I think that people can exhibit towards their own group virtues, but when they think of another group as separate and less than human, you said about, Black people should be slaves, people still have that mentality, then they can sort of separate, but it creates a division. I don't think that as a complete person then that they are virtuous, but they can be kind in their own group and then exclude anyone who's not in that group. So that's just one.
What about spiritual people? People that feel the planet and they live the life that came from the planet, and everybody came from the planet, no matter who is and comes from the planet, and the planet is in a way God for them. And then what about them? How do they view the world? What do you think?
I'm not one of those people. I always like to think I am, and then when I think of people who, in my opinion, are causing the problems we have now, I want them dead. And I really struggle because that is not virtuous, and all it does is cause anxiety in me.
But they are in pain, right? As we talked before, they are in extreme pain, and they behave the way that causes more pain, right? So here, we have the situation that we could be angry at them, right? But we can also have compassion to people that behave that way, right? And compassion is something that that we feel the pain of the human being, even though the human being can be rapists or criminals, whatever they are. But it doesn't mean that we don't take them to court and bring justice to what they do. So there is the one thing is what people do, and the other thing is how how they are as people. What brought them to actually the time that they behave that way, and is it a really sorrow that a person becomes alcoholic, or a person becomes addict, or person becomes a rapist and homeless and killer? So is it a sorrow that a human being becomes that way? So if it is, then somebody has compassion, because compassion is that feeling that we expand to another human being, that another human being does something wrong, but we feel the pain of that one that does wrong.
But what if the it's not one person doing wrong? I'm here in Ireland, and Ellen's already referred to Ireland in the comments, so I know things are extremely complex and very deep rooted and very difficult to change. But I was watching, there was a documentary on Ella Fitzgerald on BBC Two the other night, which I watched, and it was on almost immediately after the news, which showed all those shocking images.
But we have also these amazing people that stand up and create communication and create possibility of overcoming social limitations, social madness. And these people are always appearing, and it's not like they are not there, right? And look at the movie about slavery, like in England, right? So the person appeared, right? So it's not like.
But my point, Jersey, is so little seems to have changed from the time of Ella Fitzgerald's young childhood, and what's happening today. And I think the point was, did you say, Ellen, about the groups? If you're in a group, you can be as tolerant and appear to be very tolerant until you're challenged in some way by somebody being different. And how do you behave? I mean, we behave appallingly here towards asylum seekers, for example.
Well, it's hard to be. It's hard to be the person that is good, right? It's hard to have goodness, because when we are pushed and squeezed, we can start behaving the way that we didn't think that we could. And that's why it's very important for us to work on ourselves constantly to become a better human being. And the purpose of this series is that the way that we become better people, because of the virtues that we explore, and consistent reaching to feel that, to understand that, to bring more knowledge about that, right? Because that's in a way, the only way that we actually can create a person inside that when you are in adversity, you will not, you will not go and loot stores or kill others and so on, right? So definitely the need for working on that is needed, and that work is very complex, because it is not knowledge, it is not to understand something, it is in our feelings, in our stories, in our experiences. We have to experience in order to change. That's why novels, that's why stories, that's why poems, that's why, philosophy, even philosophy, it has to be written the right way in order for another human being to feel something. That's why Marcus Aurelius was writing, his meditations, and Seneca was writing about the letters, right? And so, but there are, a lot of others. Thich Nhat Hanh wrote about 50 books about, different ways of helping people to feel goodness and shift toward that direction. So there's a clear thing about how that becoming the person that is a good person is very difficult, and not many of us are, and some of us are on the journey to become one. I remember Wayne Dyer was talking about this metaphor. He brought this metaphor of an orange, and he says, so when you squeeze orange, what comes out? And if some of you know, then you know. But if some of you don't know, what do you think what comes out?
Whatever's inside. I love that quote.
Oh, you know it. You
We've all
shouldn't,
gone through
you
that.
shouldn't have said that. Because I said, some of you know, so don't say it.
Jersey,
Sorry.
You have to work for something, for knowledge and things. You just cannot really give it that way. Give it away, because then it's not really assimilated. Anywhere, anytime that you want to give something, don't give something easily. It has to be a hard choice. Work on it. You have to work on it.
Story of my life.
Right. Yeah.
Come on, Amy. There's no freebies with Jersey.
So okay. So then, so when you squeeze the orange, what comes out is a metaphor. What's inside? Why that metaphor was created? Maybe don't talk. Why the metaphor?
So you don't expect something that's other than it is? No?
Because when people are under pressure, they show their true selves.
Right, and something else? Yes, yeah, that's true, right? And then
don't judge an orange by its cover.
Yes.
Don't judge an orange by its cover.
Yeah, and that's true, right? Because people can appear really that they are, good people, but when you squeeze them, they are not, right? So the other saying is that you really, about the friends, your friend, right? When you're really in trouble, right? When you are in adversity, you are in the place of weakness, then you see who is your friend, right? So then the situation here is that the one thing is that the people are dealing with it, and the way only that they are dealing with the best they know. And society is very complex and has people who would take advantage anytime and loot others, and that only shows about how we are, really, all of us. It's not really about this kind of people, but about all of us, about how we live life, the we, right? How we educate others, how we educate people in schools, how we pass the virtues on people, how we talk about this. When it was Me Too movement, right? it was, completely acceptable by bosses to pat, women's asses, and that was okay, right? And so there are, certain behaviors that they don't go easily out. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't work on that. And then we, as society, all of us, we try to really improve that, and we do improve. It's not like we don't. Sometimes it is that it takes a lot of pain and a lot of anger, and it just happens. It just does. It means that we are just not society that we can peacefully create goodness. And it tells us another thing, that we really need to work on ourselves, work on everybody around. Isn't it?
Yeah, if I just want to be clear, I didn't mean that I wanted looters to die. There was only one guy with red hair who's in charge of my country. So I just wanted to make that clear, and I'll work on that.
Well, these comments are actually for you, Amy, but as I watch things unfolding, and you wouldn't know anything's going on in Park City. It's down in the valley, but it's not in Park City. Everyone's out walking their dog. But I just kept feeling all the negative emotions come up as I just saw this anger, and then I saw this other behavior that I'm like, wait a second, this is not anger, this is taking advantage of a situation and not being responsible. And the thing that started shifting it some for me were the policemen who stood with the protesters and who said, this was wrong. And I don't remember that happening during Ferguson. It may have, I don't remember it. But as one policeman came out and said, I'm standing in solidarity with the protesters, this is wrong.
You bring
I
up
saw other policemen doing it, and that gave me chills, because it's the tyranny that's the problem. And it causes this rage in us all. And then what do we do with the rage?
Well, I don't feel any rage. I feel compassion to people that they simply are caught on violence and they became violence. For me, it's just I have compassion to that. I have pain, their pain.
I'm not as stoic as you. I'm not there yet.
I don't know if it's stoic, but the situation here with, like you said, the policemen, I also feel policemen that they are good policemen, right? I feel policemen that they really went to the police department to really help and humanity, not just to have the power and take advantage of the weaker, because that would be the place actually to be able to do that, right? So we should really look into the places of power when people have places of power, and start really creating maybe education and toward the virtues of these people. Teachers as well, right? Because teachers can take advantage of the kids that they are not really good, or they are troublemakers, and so on, right? So there is a situation as well. Then bosses, right? CEOs and so on, right? So a lot of places where people have power, these places as society should really look into that, closer and closer, and develop certain way of justifying how to hire these people. Not only on the information, not only that the teacher is a mathematician, comes from Harvard, and I think we talked about that right before. that it's the most important, really, what is on the paper, because what is on the paper is the information, right? And if we direct ourselves in life because of information, then we will be lost, because information can be delivering that orange that from outside looks really good, but inside is rotten, and that can be in thousands, right? So I am sure about that there are policemen, and I know some of them, that they are really just very good people. And they are just simply overpowered by a few. And that is somehow created. And it's very difficult for them to eliminate this situation. So to really surpass this possibility that this bullies, this people that supposed to help us, they take advantage to actually hurt us, and because of that, certain people lose it completely, right? And they become so angry because it's so much extremes here. So I see that the complete reorganization in the police, and not the police only, but everywhere else, right, has to be done. And then we need virtues. We need to educate people to be good people. And it has to be, it should be, in schools, from elementary school to high school to universities, everyone should be educated how to be a good person. And that is important, and should be delivered, right? In a society like America, it will not happen to us because it will happen. Because if it happens because if it happens, then we will have always violence. It has to be done differently. It has to be done through, peaceful way of creating good people. And awareness of what is goodness, and delivering that the goodness is actually a good thing. So we are not really there, we have situations that when something is really wrong, then either a courage has to come from the people that they are abused and the victims of, the people that they are lost, like Me Too, right? People who are taking advantage of this situation, they're just completely lost. In their brain, they think it's good to really use the power and take, advantage, the personal advantage because of the situation. But that's the whole upbringing of all of us, right? It is we all fail right here, how we create the world, right? So in order to create a better world, we, as I said, we need to really start really going to schools, when really like schools, teachers, and start educating, developing some kind of a goodness as a way of living, skill of living, as a necessary, as a something that is bigger than anything else. So we can escape the information as the most important factor. The information that makes people smart, but can be really mean, right? So smart, that extremely smart, we have a lot of possibility to create very smart people that they don't know how to be good. They simply don't know. They are just caught on not be good. The habits, the experiences come from, families, come from, wherever they live, and they become the product of that, and they don't become the product of society, because society doesn't create something on top of everything, certain way of living, the good way of living, goodness. Where is it? Religion tries to get there. No, it didn't get there, right? So what? We need something. We really need something. We need something that can be powerful enough to deliver to the racists that being a racist, it means suffering for the one that is a racist, and suffering spreads everywhere else, right? But the racist is already a victim as well, a victim of not living a good life. That is the point here.
I think, Jersey, that it's possible that racism is what's coming out on the surface, but that there could be something much deeper, that is under the surface. And I read the Viktor Frankl book just before this course began. I read it years ago, and then before we even started talking about it, I read it again, and it was very interesting to me of the reaction of the prisoners when they were free. And some of them, Victor observed, would tromp on the crops because they could. They would destroy things because they had been deprived for so long. They felt they were entitled to something.
Some of them, right? Not all of them.
Not all of them, some of them. And I think, we may be getting a snapshot of people who have been deprived on multi-levels. And this injustice has fueled this fire for them. The injustice, they may not be articulate, they may not be educated, maybe some of them are. I don't know who the people are that are taking the action, but they may have deprivation beyond what can be coped with easily under the circumstances. And I'm sure during a pandemic, there's been a lot of stress, even for people of privilege. Most of us are, and yet we have had some kind of deprivation. But could it be possible what's going on is fueled by something that has lasted many generations?
Yes, and then, that we know that deprivation is just your own feeling, and it's not something that is real, right? So it is your judgment about the way you live life. But that judgment doesn't have to be there.
Good. I'd just like to add, going back to the how long does it take? And I just thought of the song Strange Fruit by, I think it was Billie Holiday. And it's been over 90 years since she recorded that. And obviously a long time before that, these issues had begun. But from what I understand in reading and working with First Nations up here, it's like you're thinking of 2 to 3 generations of micro progression to get to the point. And micro progressions apply here too, I think, and I hope that you would agree with that. Secondly, going back to people doing the best they can, a quote that's really stuck with me for a long time is that at any given time, people are doing the best that they can. Everyone is doing the best that they can. And when they can do better, they will. And again, I think you're talking in probably generations to change. The third thing, as an administrator at an elementary school, I had this kid that was just a pain in the neck. And but every day I had to drive by his house. And as I was driving early in the morning, it occurred to me that he was sleeping. And when people are sleeping, or when he was sleeping in this case, he was just the person. He was there. He wasn't fighting. He wasn't arguing. He was just a person. And that's always helped me to get through dealing with kids. And I'm coming to see that it's helping me get through some of this stuff as well, that when these people are sleeping, they're innocent. They're just the person that they are. And if you think about that, it's really kind of an interesting thing. It takes away all of the other characteristics, good and bad, that they may or may not have. So I don't know, just an observation, but it works for me sometimes. Thanks.
It's a really deep sadness that, people become addicts, right? People become alcoholics, and people, become violent. It's sadness. It's deep sadness because it's another human being. It's you, right? It's another human being tries to live life, and it just caught that doesn't know how to live a better life. It's just sadness. It doesn't mean that we can excuse somebody from doing wrong, right? But it is doing wrong here. It is not really wrong person, right? So, but that, maybe we just, don't feel it that way, that we maybe need to start feeling that these people really suffer a lot. And doing wrong things, why they would do wrong things, right? Why people would do wrong things? They suffer already. They would never do the wrong things if they didn't suffer. So suffering is already deep inside them. Pain is deep. And because of that they do this, atrocious sometimes things. And they live in this kind of conditions. People were going to Holocaust, and some of them, most of them died there. But some of them, they became kapos. And those who were helping Germans, they just took advantage of the moment, and they became the ones that, beat the others and survived the war that way sometimes, right? So, but others didn't do that, right? Most wouldn't do that, would not really. They would die, but they wouldn't do that. There were not many people who became kapos in the whole Holocaust, in the whole, concentration camps. Most people didn't. So we really don't have, many of those people, but it's like, remember Wayne Dyer was saying how many people we have really that they are really suffering to the point that they become violent, and not even 1%. So most people are just simply good people. And, there are some that they really need help. And if we don't do that, then they create a lot of pain. And I think that here we need, to spend more money toward, creating the possibility of education. It starts, this education differently in elementary schools, that, the bully cannot happen. And if the bully happens, we need to have a system that would expose transparency of bully, the families, and working together without the shame, how to help the person not to be the bully, because it begins there, not to punish the one that is a bully, but how to help the one that is a bully not to be the bully. That is the work. That is what the work is. And that requires the village, the whole village. It is complex here because the parents are powerful sometimes. The parents are protective, and the parents are engage, and they are bullish too, and that's why it's complex. That's why, you know, we need certain things that society would see, more transparency here, more possibility for, you know, seeing things. Like when we see that the policeman does what he does, right? We see it, right? So we need to see everything. We need to, you know, when we see, we can take the action and help these people not to be what they are. And that I think is the work. I remember Harriet when she saved 1,000 slaves. She said, I could save another 1,000. I couldn't save them because they didn't know they were slaves. Well, anyone wants to say something?
It just sort of made me think about, I think it was Somalia anyways, there was the child soldiers. My nephew went and worked with the rehabilitation of these children who were made to do horrific things. I'm not sure which country it was now, but anyways, it's just remarkable what they can do, what they were forced to do, and how they could recover with some kind of normalcy. But, you know, the US is a huge country with complex issues that, you know, have not been addressed for many generations. So, yeah, I have great sadness, like Dick was saying, that this is happening. It's very hard to see it and reflect on it and to, you know, not know where to begin, you know.
So I have a question for you guys. If you become a good person, can you become bad person?
I think you need to keep working at being a good person. I don't think that work is ever finished.
Well, there are people that they are, right? I saw those people in my life. They kept doing what they were doing, but they were good people. My question is, when you become a good person, can you become bad?
I would say that there is always the possibility that we would do something less than good at some point. It might not be a major crime of any kind, but we might be less than generous or less than kind, or, you know, lacking consideration or compassion at some point.
So, you know, the goodness is a very interesting thing, because, you know, when you in a way sense what is good, is really hard. Is really hard, very difficult would be to be bad if you really become. So there is certain integrity goes with the goodness that cannot compromise the goodness. So if you become a good person, that there is no way back.
Is that not like becoming more of the master?
What is it?
Is it not like becoming more of the master
Well,
than the fatalist?
yeah, of course, right. So that the goodness is on the of course on the master way, but it comes from the virtues, of course, right? Because you can master certain things is not really enough. You can master certain things and still be a bad person, right?
I think it's either in your nature and you just are, or not.
Well, if we believe in such a thing, that we would be really lost.
Well, I believe that about myself. I think in my nature, I don't have the nature to be an evil person.
Well, so, in a way, it happened to you that you became a good person, right?
Well, I think I always was. I didn't change.
Well, if you became good person, you had to have certain people around you that they were good too, right?
Yes.
So you were just blessed by growing up in goodness, surrounded by goodness.
I have some stories to tell,
Of course.
but I'll be quiet. Yeah.
But in some ways, everything worked toward that direction, right? And your believings, your feelings were aligned with good. You could become a bad, right?
What was the question? You could
become a bad person when you were growing up if you were in conditions of that would create such a thing in you.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
So it is that, when we really come to the world, we come to the world, right? We don't know almost anything, right? We just own the energy. That energy is shaped, and it's shaped according to where we live and who we meet, and day by day, month by month, year by year, we are shaped with certain habits and of course the whole tendencies and so on. And then let's say we become really people that believe that others are less, right? So if we become that, then there is a big journey why the message would be delivered to the person that that is not really good idea to think that anybody there can be less, right? So how the message can be delivered usually cannot be delivered, because that the message is a virtue to be a good person and not thinking that somebody is less. It's a virtue. So if it is a virtue, then it is something that requires maybe 20 years or 30 years. So it is and luck that you can be maybe around people that they are just good people somewhere, right? You can end up somewhere in the college that a professor can be that way. And something draws you to that professor. You kind of like something there, and you start engaging with that professor, and then professor talks to you more, and then you read more books. He gives you the books, and you started reading books and meeting other people. Suddenly, you are more and more surrounded by people that they are in nature just they're good people, right? And one day maybe you believe that it is not facade. It is not really, not only that the orange is outside, appears good, but inside is rotten. And you don't believe that everybody is like that. Then one day you believe that it's possible that the orange is good outside and good inside. And that's when you become a good person.
Honestly, I don't think it was from growing up in my parents. I think it was from seeking mentors and women in my life that I saw goodness in them and I wanted to be like them.
Yes, but somehow you crave that. You know, you already had a message to do that, right? So you search. So I'm talking about the beginning, right? The whole beginning, when how we get the message, right? That we are on the search, right? That the message is that, you know, we lived a life that is not good, and you start searching for goodness. You start liking goodness, and it's somewhere there, right? You believe that there is such a thing as goodness, and you start searching for it. You get mentors, you get people, you surround yourself with goodness. You watch movies that they are good, right, in nature. You read books that they are really good, right, and they make you better, feel better, right, and even inspire you to even, you know, to think differently about certain things that you didn't. You find yourself to expand that goodness comes from everywhere. So it is really important, vital, I think, in creating such a thing, such a movement, you know, in the world that would have people, virtuous people, simply virtuous people, without, you know, without attachment to anything, any philosophy or any religion, just people, good people.
I think you're also vulnerable.
Of course you are. And if you don't want to be vulnerable, then you will never become a good person, because, you know, you cannot complain, right? You cannot blame, because the good people don't do that.
Well, then I'm not so good.
Uh-huh. Okay. All right. Well, it's complex, right? You can be good here, not as good. It's like we are like a journey and project of becoming a good person, but it's like somebody said, you go forever with it, except for few. And some of us are really good people right there already. I mean, everywhere, in every direction. Most of us, we are evolving and getting more and more feelings of becoming a good person, and start seeing that as an amazing thing, a thing that is worth of fighting for. And it's, you know, bigger than we are, expand itself to society, expands itself to the planet. And that is beautiful. That is something that, you know, if you carry that feeling, that you cannot, nothing can be bigger than that.
Can you repeat that feeling?
The feeling about, you know, where you come from, the feeling of the caring for the planet, caring for the other human being, right? So it's the feeling of the goodness and being that way, and like feeling the whole planet, right? And a feeling like you are the mother of that planet, right? You are the mother, and you are the every part of it. It's an amazing feeling, right? And if you have that, then you place yourself in the responsibility for everything what happens on that planet, right? Then you have compassion to things that experience pain, and you start searching sometimes, right, how to help those that experience this pain, how to turn the bully to become a good person. Well, because the bully suffers by being a bully.
It reminds me of the expression of, it's rather trite these days, I guess, but think globally, act locally. And the thing that we need to first do is that part of think locally is ourselves. We have to commit to goodness before we can share the goodness to our close family, our friends, and out from there to our city, our village, our province, whatever, but it has to start with us.
Sure, yeah, of course. Well, that's why it cannot be information, because it has to come from the human being, right?
Yeah.
It has to come from the feelings of love. You have to love yourself to love the other human being, right?
Mm-hmm.
First of all, and then because that's the feeling of love, right? Then you have to love the society in order to evolve that, help the society to evolve, or you have to love the planet, right? To help the planet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then integrity goes in every direction. That people that love human being who would not really hurt another human being, right?
Exactly.
So, but that feeling can be in every one of us. It is not really a feeling that is only for a few of us. There was this, it was a book, or the movie was made about the serial killer that was on the death row. And there was this psychologist that worked with that person for 2 years. And the moment that the serial killer comprehended and felt what he was doing, and he felt what kind of a person he was, he hung himself. See, compassion is a very needed feeling in order to heal the society and to make the society better. Because without that, we turn ourselves against those that they are lost. And if we turn ourselves against them, then we cannot improve, we cannot evolve. Well, what a day we had today. I guess, in a small way, we do what needs to be done in order to become a better person, right? Hard choices are complex. And without compassion, a hard choice can be lost. Because we can see that the hard choice actually is is something right, but it can be very wrong. All right, guys. Let me think what you need to do for tomorrow, right? So, virtues. What is the virtue? I like to jump to the different virtue in this situation. I like to jump to the.
I was going to say, Jersey, we haven't talked about mastery being in the details at all today.
What is it?
I think the virtue was going to be mastery in the details, but we haven't talked about that today, really.
Yeah, I'm going to skip and go to a virtue on 37. Controlling yourself is attractive. Controlling others is repulsive. Helping others to control themselves is magical. Let's go into that.
That's a good virtue.
Yes, and let's explore this one because that is overlapping with, depth of what we are dealing with today and how to actually deal with it. So let's write about, I understand about that virtue. And let's read we didn't read the creating a garden, right? In the mastering rest choices.
No.
Let me see.
We may have read it, but I don't know if we discussed it.
No, we didn't. Let me, I'm just thinking about something else for you to read. Yeah, I want you to read the poem, I Know What I Want.
Which book is that in?
Let me still think about which poem would be the.
Jersey, what book are you looking at?
I'm looking at the poetry book.
Oh, I don't.
So. Okay, so I think that it's a poem that It's on 96 page. Breaking Yourself. I will include this poem into the, if somebody doesn't have this poem, I will include into the email. Okay. All right, guys. The goodness is a beautiful thing. The goodness is, you know, it's really something that is worth of fighting for everyone. If you have this goodness a little bit in you, then you also you have to expand it to others and fight for others as well. And those who especially don't have it. And then if you can find the ways to help them, those who are really lost, then you can do something really good in this world. That is a powerful thing. All right, guys. See you tomorrow.
Thanks, Jersey.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Jersey.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take
Thanks.
care, everyone.
You too.
Have a good night.